What have I written? Well, I've written a lot of stuff. I'm a writer. So I've written journals. I don't know how many journals I have, probably 100 or 200. And I have written articles for the local newspapers. I was a columnist in it once. I wrote a column piece for Ottawa. There was a man lying on the side of the road with his shoes off. I thought that can't be a real person, and I got closer and it was a real person. But he was moving, so he was sitting, leaning on his arm, doing something, reading or something. I don't know. Probably hitchhiking. It's not a very nice time to hitchhike. It's a little bit, whatever it is. The road is wet and it's mist everywhere. What else have I written? Well, I was a travel writer, right? That was cool. So they would take me somewhere, and at the end of the day, I would come back to my room after having gone to like maybe the aquarium and the art gallery and taken a tour of the town and eaten in a restaurant for lunch and a restaurant for dinner, all of which was part of their, it was all free, right? And so I would come back to my room and I would try to write an article about each one of those. Just for the fun of it. Just, see if I could write a whole article about the aquarium and then an if you go box. If you go box had to include things like the location of it and how much it cost and where parking was and I don't know, where you could stay overnight, where else you could eat. Anyway, that was a challenge because I was quite tired when I got back. We would go out to dinner somewhere, and then it would be after 9 when we got back to the hotel, and that's when I would have to, do all the things you do when you return to the hotel to get ready for bed and write an article. And that was before the days of laptops. There were some, and if you went to the business office, you could use them. So I wrote them all down by hand. And then I came home and I did them on my computer. But I didn't use all the articles. Sometimes by the end of the trip, there would have been one main thing I wanted to write about. So I would write about that. And sometimes when I write, my journal, which is always beside me, it's right there. Sometimes I would take it with me in the woods. I would also take a lawn chair. The kind of lawn chairs with the webbing, and when you fold it up, it's all one, and I would put my journal and a pen in there. Then I would close it up and I would carry it under my arm. And I started doing that when my children were in strollers, and I would end up taking them for a walk down the laneway. We had a long lane back then. Taking them for a walk, and then they'd want to stop and play. They'd want to play in all the pebbles or the rocks or something that would tickle their fancy. And so then I would stand around until my back started to hurt, and then I would want to go. So I brought chairs along so I could just open the chair up, sit down, write in my journal while my children played at my feet. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. Now there were some places that I could sit. I didn't need a chair. There was a big, huge rock along the lane. But if I had realized I didn't have access to things like I do now. Like we have this amazing reuse center at the dump, so I have access to millions of chairs for free. They're usually these plastic kinds. Sometimes you can get a metal one or a wooden one, but most of them are plastic. So I try and paint them green or white, depending on what season I'm going to be out in. Of course, you don't want to change the color every year, but sometimes black. Black is a good color, as much as I hate black. I do not like it. It has a complete absence of light. But if you paint things black, they disappear, right? So I could paint chairs back black, and then you wouldn't really see them. But I would sit there in the chair by the stream or by a pond. I like the stream because of the activity. So I would sit there, and I would often, in whatever little place I had, I would have a container, a waterproof container that had my journal and a sketchbook in it and pencils or whatever. And I would sit there and I would sketch what the stream looked like today, because every day was different. It's very strange how it could actually be that way. But the ice on a stream changes every day. The stream, snow melts, the stream rises, it freezes, there's a layer of ice, the water level goes down, and then there's a shelf of ice, and maybe there gets a new shelf of ice the next night. Then it goes down a little more, and then you maybe have ice on the last one. So you can lean down, and at the bank of the stream, you can look under these shelves. It's very beautiful. And then around sticks that pierce the water, they will collect ice, and you'll have like marbles of ice around it, or maybe just flat. So I would sit there and I would describe it, and I would just describe everything. I would describe what I've been doing and whatever I felt like thinking about, and it was coming out, right? And I just loved to write. It was always a part of me. And then animals would come by. I would sit in the kayak or the canoe at the time, right beside the beaver lodge. And I would sit there motionless, because if you make a noise in the bottom of the canoe, it's going to reverberate through the whole water body. And all the beavers will know you're there, and they'll slap and go home. I suppose I should try and pass this truck sometime, because I'm in his not a snowstorm. Oh, it's over here now. Can I go past? Can't really see around him. It's still clear, but I can't see anything because he's so big. Necessary. I see lights coming, but I can't tell how far they are anymore, and so I always err on the side of caution. And if I see any lights anywhere, I don't pass. That's really overkill. So anyway, sometimes I'll see a mink walk by, or he'll have a little area, and I'll imagine what it's like to be a mink, where this is your front yard, or the bounding fisher, a fisher. Sometimes you see deer, and they'll lay down, and you see them. Watch them while they're napping. I don't want to be behind these two trucks, between these two trucks. I could get out of the traffic. I could just go out on the shoulder and let them all go by, and then I can have a nice peaceful drive. To find a place to pull over where nobody is going to have a problem with them. I found just the place. Oh, nice. See, I'd like to just stop here and sit and journal, play my violin for a while. I'm tired of driving. It's a long way. It's over 5 hours. Okay. The one thing that would have made this a memorable trip would be to get out and walk around the car in that very pretty location. Sometimes I've driven for a long ways looking for a pretty location where you can get out and walk around, not be on the main highway. Well, now it's clear. I don't have to be in anybody's rainstorm anymore. Sometimes I would write, like you have to, if you want to write for a magazine, you have to send them a question, like a query letter where you're proposing an article to them. Would you like me to write about, you wouldn't start with that. You start with, there has been blah, 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 blah. Would you like an article, a 100-word article on this subject, which would include blah, 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 blah. And where and how, whatever. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and how much. And so then I get assignments. So yes, I'd like to know that. I'd like an article on that. So at some point I sort of became the Ontario, Eastern Canada representative of hunting and fishing for Outdoor Life magazine. What was so cool about that was I was travel writing, right? So I was writing for them and I was writing for other publications. I would get in an airplane, I would get out in an airport, I would go down to the newspaper stand, the magazine area, and pull out Outdoor Life magazine, thumb through it, and there would be my article. Ha! I'd say to whoever was there, look, you wrote that. That was fun. I've always written. Sometimes I have a lot of problems. Not so much lately. I mean, life has gotten a lot better since, the children all grew up, moved away. It's not so much pressure on me. And I'm less, like, it was hard work splitting up children that were fighting. That was very difficult. Because they would just go right back at it, It's like, where are their cages anyway? So I would have feelings. I would feel trapped, different things in the winter. I wouldn't be able to get out and do what I wanted to do. Well, of course, I had children and I couldn't do much of anything I wanted to do then either. But anyway, so I wrote about things. I wrote and wrote and wrote. I have a live journal on YouTube. No, on live journal. I have a journal online on live journal. Nancy Today. I like it. I didn't write in it for a long time, but now I've been writing in it. If you push the little microphone, then you can dictate it. You tell it a new paragraph, and then you carry on, comma, da da da, period, new paragraph. And it just writes it for you. And you probably should read it over, but I don't usually have time because I'm driving or something, and I just, publish it. So there it is, it's out. And then, of course, I'll get an alert from my friend who says, have you read what you wrote in your journal? No, let me go check. Oh! Anyway. You know how it is with those spell checking machines, right? So do you like to write? Are you a writer? I think writing is a wonderful talent. And the way to write is you use your own voice. You just talk like, I remember when I was writing letters to my cousin when I was little. And I had another friend that moved. And that was in the days of pen pals and letter writing. And, you were given stationery, envelopes, and letter writing paper for Christmas. And it smelled nice. It was really thin and really pretty. And I would write. I would use it up. You had really thin pages, too, for if you wanted to write a long letter that was going to go by airmail. Airmail was expensive. And so you had to have it really thin. So you could get this one piece of blue paper, which you could bend the sides into an envelope with. So it wouldn't cost as much. It's 1 ounce or less, whatever. Anyway, so I would write letters all the time. And it was nice to write letters. It was nice to get letters. And they smelled nice. So, you'd be working with it and smelling it. And I had nothing really to say. Hi, Heather, or Dear Heather, how are you? I am fine. I beat Cynthia at chess this week. Anyway, love, Nancy. But then I realized that what you could say was you could talk like you're you, right? You could have a conversation. And so then I would write to Mary. We would write long letters to one another. And they would just go on and on and on. You know, and sometimes you could tell that the letter had been written for days, you know, like there'd be a coffee stain on it or a little bit of dirt smudge here or there. You could tell that they had been it had been around for a little while. Hi, Nanny. I started this letter 4 months ago, and I thought I should finish it up and send it in the mail. You know, and you'd write about your kids. Well, so-and-so is 8, so-and-so is 10, so-and-so is 12, so-and-so is 16, so-and-so is 18. You know, and they're in this place and that place, and they're doing this or that. Or what I've been doing, I always was working on a million projects. Well, I'm growing this in the garden and putting all dry, or, you know, freezing these things or canning that. There was always something to talk about. But you didn't have to really worry about what the other person was going to think about it. You just wrote, right? Because you can get yourself really tangled up if you try and figure out what the other person, every reaction they're going to have. Of course, some reactions are obvious. You know that if you say this to the person, you're going to get a reaction that you don't want. They're going to assume that what you're talking about is this, where you're really not at all. So you might as well not say that. Writing letters is a great writing thing, you know. It's a great having grandchildren give out cards at school to their friends to invite them to a play date. You know, we never called it a play date when we grew up, did we? It was called, well, you'd have a sleepover or a spend the night party or a slumber party, but we didn't really say slumber party too much. Or you say, can you come over? Can you come out to play? But play date, we didn't use that word. That wasn't a thing. Oh, what time is it? I have to make some decisions. I have to drive some more. So I think I'm going to let you go. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.